Well, good evening, everyone. We appreciate you taking time in an incredibly busy time of year between holiday strolls and angel runs and parades and all of that. So you are in the right place if you want to hear about open space and recreation. And the town of Medfield seems to really want to hear about it. So thank you for making the time. My name is Jerry Potts. I'm chair of the Open Space and Recreation Planning Committee. This is quickly just a listing, and we're going to try to keep this under an hour. So basically, Sarah, Kat, Lauren, myself, Jess, Corrine, and George are the members of this committee. We have representation from Town Planning, Conservation Committee, Parks and Recreation, and then our consultant, Wayne, who will be doing most of the talking tonight, which is lucky for all of you. And he's the consultant through Plan Sustain that we've hired to guide us through this process. So what we'd like to do just quickly, here's what the agenda looks like. We'll do a brief introduction, quick exercise, Places of the Heart. It is not a Hallmark movie, although after the 50th holiday movie on there, watching it with my mother, it may be. Medfield Parks and Recreation, we're going to talk about what are the best features and activities. We'll talk about protected natural areas and trails, and we'll wind this up. The goal is to have this no more than 60 minutes, but this is mostly to allow you to be able to participate, give us feedback. You'll have a couple of other opportunities, not just in this forum, but we will be posting a link to a Google form that we encourage you. If thought comes up afterwards, we'll be doing a drawing on that. We'll save that until the end. And we also can, obviously there'll be other forms, but you can also email it, and I'll provide that information at the end. Quickly, what is the Open Space and Recreation Plan? Our charter is to help Medfield with our open space and recreation, the programming, the management, and maintenance. This is not being done from scratch. We have some great documents that already exist and some planning that's already been done. We have these previous open space and recreation plans. You can see the dates there, but we need to update the current one. And that's why we're all here tonight. This is the kickoff for that process. We also are using the townwide master plan, which finished up in 2021. Open space and recreation was a main focus of that. A lot of folks giving feedback about these are the things that makes Medfield special. And then even back further, the Medfield State Hospital Strategic Use Master Plan, that in 2018 also had a lot of feedback. So quickly, what does open space and recreation cover? This is the town-owned conservation areas and greenways, active recreation and parks in town, both the state and nonprofit partners open space, and we're fortunate to be surrounded by a whole bunch of folks that help in that area, like the trustees. There's also private land that's been permanently protected with conservation restrictions that have been donated to the town or purchased, and then trail connections and linkages that is probably how you get around to most of these things. And if we bump into each other, it's going to be with your dog or somewhere out on one of those trails. Those are also included. So the goals for this are really, some very specific ones that we need to come out, which is to help plan and allocate our resources to make sure that the needs, wants, and desires for our open space and recreation are taken care of. And that includes the management and maintenance of what we already have, expanding on active recreation opportunities, looking at physical and programmatic accessibility, which is a major focus of this plan, to ensure that anyone who wants to be able to enjoy beautiful open space and recreation in town has that opportunity. Look at strategic opportunities that might come up for key parcels, although that's not a main focus of this, but when those opportunities arise, it'll be great to have a plan in place that we've sort of already vetted with the town on how that fits in overall. And then finally, and importantly, without an updated open space and recreation plan, we can't even qualify to apply for state money, federal grants that could help us with conservation, open space, recreation, improving the parks. So it's not the biggest part of it, but certainly other people helping us to meet our objectives is one of the big things here. And the hope is that with this plan, we'll be able to take care of that. So here is the process that we're in right now. The planning committee was formed earlier this year. We have regular meetings. They're posted. We encourage you to attend any and all. We want as much feedback as possible. If there's something please spread the word to it. You're always welcome to come to those committee meetings. They're held once a month. There was a forum, a survey that was done in November, December of 2019. We have those results in addition to all the other documentation I talked about. The green, this is you. We are here tonight. This is the public forum to help us scope around the action plan. We expect to have an updated survey that will be distributed in Q1 of 2023. A lot of what we're getting here in the forum, the documents that we get and the feedback we get from you from the Google form will be incorporated into that. We'll do an outreach in a virtual open house in a Q1 of 2023. And then before this is finalized, we'll present the action plan in a draft format in the public forum. So that is the opening of this. And with that, I want to turn it over to Wayne, who's going to be our tour guide through the remainder of this.
Thank you, Jerry. That was great. So my name is Wayne Fiden. I'm a principal with Plan Sustain, and the town hired me to put together this plan. I just wanted, before I start, emphasize two things for my role. First is I never can replace your local knowledge. You know Medfield a lot better than I do. And so I hope to hear from you and the committee and all the things that I need to know. And second, the plan is your document, not mine. So it's not my job to bring in any of my values to the table. It's really my job to channel what do we hear from the community, what do we hear from the different town committees, and from the Open Space and Recreation Committee. As Jerry said, one of the many goals in this process is to be eligible for state and federal funds. That's not driving the process. You should decide what you want your town to be. But once you decide for something, it's always nice to have somebody else pay for it. And so you are totally in the driver's seat, you as the town, in what the plan recommends. What do you want the future of Medfield's open space and recreation to be? It's my job to translate that into the format that the state requires. The state doesn't tell you anything about what you need to do or not do. It tells you a lot about the format, that we have to include an accessibility inventory, for example. We have to, look at the master plan, to look at goals and objectives from it. So that's sort of my job, to make it all fundable and to fulfill your dreams and aspirations. So tonight, as Jerry said, we want to keep this under an hour. We're going to have 3 polls to get you to vote online, and then 2 discussions in between the polls. So I'm going to start right now with the places of the heart. Brittany, if you could launch that.
Bear with me one second. Which question did you want?
This is the select 2 natural areas.
Okay. You should see it now.
Actually, this is the summary, Brittany. This isn't the questions, right? Okay.
We have about half people responding, so I'll just leave it open for another second here. All right, well, it looks like we have about 85% participation. Is that good, or you want me to leave it open?
No, I think it's good. Leave the view up. So yeah, in the poll, just so we can see the summary. So interesting for me, again, as an outsider, seems like pretty evenly divided. The rail trail is the narrowest of the areas. So not surprising, it gets fewer votes. A lot of other things are much broader. But people clearly sort of love all the different open spaces and the types that you have. We had to keep this short, which is why the other natural area, there's a lot of other smaller areas that we couldn't get to. So go ahead and close that poll. And then we're basically going to break tonight into two interactive forums. We're going to start with Parks and Recreation. And so these are specifically about town-owned parks and recreation. And then we're going to move on to conservation areas and natural areas, which will be both about town and other partners. So we're going to start with the second question for this one, for a poll. And then same thing as before, we're going to ask you to do the poll. Brittany, this is the one that begins with what are the two top activities that you and your children do in town parks and recreation areas. And then after this, we're going to have a discussion. So get ready for your thoughts. Great. So again, really interesting. Now, obviously, we're well aware that we may or may not be getting a cross-representation of town for this meeting. So we don't do these as votes because I don't know if walkers and runners are overrepresented or if that's truly a cross-section. But these are actually pretty similar results that I've seen in other communities, right? So field sports are incredibly beloved, particularly for those of us who have children. And those of us who stay active for as long as we can. But walking and running is often more heavily used. So you can go ahead and close this, Brittany. At this point, I think what we're really interested in is just sort of opening up to discussion from the entire audience. So if people can raise their hand, so if you have used Zoom before, at the bottom of the screen, there's the raise hand feature. If you can just raise your hand. And what we want to know specifically is, what are the best features and activities in town's parks and recreation, right? What gets you excited when you wake up in the morning and say, I want to go out and use a park and recreation? Again, by this, we're talking about parks and recreation are managed by the town Parks and Recreation Department, playing fields, parks, not conservation areas, not recreation, not those kinds of places.
And feel free. Okay, we've got one. Let me allow to speak. And we've got a couple of phone users. So folks who are on the phone can feel free to press *9, and that will raise your hand and let us know that you are interested in speaking. So first of all, Martha, and then we'll get to Adam. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Martha.
The thing that I like best about Medfield in terms of park and rec is a variety of places to go for a walk and a hike. It's that simple.
Thank you.
And Adam?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. For me, for the kids, it's really, the field space they have down at McCarthy, and the Hospital Hill is one of their favorite parts, to be honest. The sledding and down there. For me, and seeing my two boys and their friends growing up, it's just, I think the use of the space is it needs to be geared more toward the children even further. And then we have some areas that are very adult oriented, and there should be absolutely some, but there are far more kids in these towns than there are adults, and the park and recreation, I feel, is geared very much toward the children of the town and to keep them active. That's what I'm most excited about.
Adam, can I just do a follow-up? Why McCarthy in particular as opposed to other recreation areas?
I think McCarthy has the most opportunity. Let me put it that way. I know that Hinckley is great, and Metacomet has developed fantastically to its edges. Right, we can't do much more at Metacomet. I think just the McCarthy area has so much potential down there.
Okay, great, thank you. Other thoughts from you all?
Well, I'm seeing some of the names here, Wayne. There we go. I know there's some people who have active opinions, so we encourage you.
We're getting more. Okay. So Jeremy, go ahead.
First, my name is Jeremy Solomon. I've lived in the town for over 12 years now, raised 3 boys, all of whom have gone through the kind of athletics program here. Thank you for this forum. I appreciate the time everybody puts in and volunteers on behalf of the town. First of all, I know this is sometimes inglorious, but we do appreciate it as a citizen and somebody who raises kids here. I've always been so impressed with the maintenance of the fields here, particularly sports fields at Wheelock and also up at McCarthy. I wind up going to a lot of towns for the road games and such, and frankly, I think it's a source of pride for us when we host other communities and they see the quality and safety that our maintenance crews provide for us.
Great, that's great. It's very good to hear.
And Jeanette?
I'm a big fan of Hinckley Pond and have been since my kids were little. They're all grown up now, but we live nearby, so we could walk there easily. We didn't go away for summers. We don't have a pool. That was a really important part of my kids' upbringing. And I still enjoy going down there and just walking around the pond all seasons. And now that there's a playground there too, that's a special plus, although that was when my kids were older, but my grandchildren now, whenever they visit, that's a good place. So yay, Hinckley Pond.
Thanks, Jeanette.
Okay, Martha again. Oops.
One of the things I just wanted to say is I think it really depends on what stage of life you're in. When we had younger kids, our kids are one's in college, finishing up this year, the other is out. When the kids were younger, I mean, if you would ask me, I'd say the athletic fields, I mean, it was fantastic. I was playing tennis then a lot. It was terrific. And I would hike every so often with family and friends. But now that I'm older and they're out of the house, that's not as important to me. But I think it's really important to make sure we, cover the different demographic groups that are out there. And I do think overall, there's a fairly good representation. And when you get to what's missing, I'll tell you what I think you should do. So, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Martha.
One second for Chris.
Hi, everyone. I think when I think about the various places in town, and I think back to when my kids were little, and this kind of goes to the accessibility issue, I think I always really appreciated some of the places in town that had an intergenerational intergenerational opportunities. So, when you're sitting at Metacomet Park with your little ones and a grandparent comes in, it's really nice to be able to have that connection with an older person, with a senior citizen, and I know that it benefits them, broadens their, so their isolation. So I think that when we're thinking about what we have existing and really start trying to observe when we do have intergenerational opportunities to just sort of leverage them as much as possible, because they are mutually beneficial.
Thank you.
Kathy, go ahead.
Hey, everybody. I appreciate you guys doing this and wanted to add that one of the things, not only am I a town resident, but I work for Medfield Outreach. And we seem to just get increasing information from the kids that middle school sort of time frame when you're maybe want a little separation from your parents, but not quite have achieved the level of autonomy and independence of having your own license, that there's really, if we could continue to utilize our open space for a place that's inviting for these communities, but maybe can think about ways in which we can invite the middle school type of population there, maybe build programming or build spaces for the kids in quote, Deadfield, not my word, theirs, for more to do that could promote safety and prevention and continue a place of inclusivity and the community feel. That's my 2 cents. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to interrupt for my colleagues. I'm going to say goodbye. I have to run to planning board meeting. But if you guys are all co-hosts, so if you guys want to take over doing the controls, I'll see you guys later.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you
Sarah.
so much.
We can do that.
So still take comments, but let me ask a specific question that might help tailor the comments. So, I'm an outside consultant. I love what I've seen from Medfield already, but imagine I finish the plan and then I leave for 10 years and come back. What are you going to show me in Parks and Recreation that you're going to be most proud of? And it could be either an existing feature or a new feature.
So I will take care of allowing Kathy to talk. There you go. Kathy, you are back.
Okay, thanks. I'm back. So here's my shameless plug yet again, a youth center, some sort of youth activity center where kids could come in and have open recreational space that would be inviting. That I would be thrilled.
Okay, thanks.
And we will go to Adam. Adam is also a frequent caller, so we'll bring it back, Adam. Here you go. And if you can unmute, there we go.
Thanks, Jerry. Yeah, I took the words out of my mouth there. I think a youth center is fantastic. Growing up in Needham, every Friday we had a youth center, opportunity, and we had the youth center dances too for middle school kids, and it was a lot of fun. You got to go play basketball or foosball, or I think it was every other Friday we had like an actual dance, so it was kind of fun there. So I think that and that can be combined with like a larger field house or something like that too. I think I'm a big proponent of sports and activity, so kids moving in one way or another, I'm a big fan of, other than behind a screen and not holding a remote all day. Another big thing for me and some other sports clubs, I'm the president of Medfield Youth Lacrosse, by the way. Other sports teams in town is a turf field. I know that might be faux pas and it's been run around a couple times, but to answer the 10-year question, I think that would be a big proponent, big asset for the town.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Adam. Hilly, we'll bring you into the mix here.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. So I want to follow up on what Kathy and Adam said. I think a youth center for that population that cannot drive themselves yet, but clearly need some independence is very important. And those of us who have been in Medfield a little longer know that this has been a discussion since the 70s, and that there was a unfortunate and heart-wrenching vote in the early 2000s that did not let the project go forward. But that would be a great 10-year goal. And adding to that, I would want to highlight that that population is not self-mobile. And I think the towns should seriously consider connecting some of these parks and recreational facilities with safe walkways and bicycle lanes. So these kids can cycle from the schools to the parks, to the youth center, to the bike trail, wherever, you know, and that I think is a wonderful 10-year goal.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hilly. And that came through loud and clear in the townwide master plan as well. So good to echo it. We will bring Martha back. You were back, Martha.
Okay. I'm totally in favor of making sure all the children in this town have many opportunities, but I just want to speak for those who are a little older, and it could include children as well, as one of the fastest growing sports in the country right now, which is pickleball. Right now, there are a lot of Medfield people who are playing in Norwood, they're playing in Millis, they're playing in Medway, and you know, it's a pretty low entry cost to enter the sport as an individual. It's really quick to pick up. I was a tennis player, a sailor, a hiker, and to be honest, it's a lot more fun than tennis, which I loved, and that I had stopped playing about a decade ago for health reasons. That pickleball seems to be fine for me, and it's just social. They're like pickup games. My husband's still playing outside right now in Medway. They just shut the Millis courts down. And, you know, there's such a huge interest in it in this country. And it's great that we're allowed to go to Millis and Medway and these other towns. And it's great that Kingsbury has, you know, indoor courts, but it would be nice to have the opportunity for everyone. I know even I read somewhere today that Westwood is doing something with the school system, introducing pickleball, and they're thinking about outdoor courts. And it's not a high entry cost to do. It's also something, you know, depending where you would put it, whether it would be over by the tennis courts or you put it by the senior center. I mean, you can fit 2 pickleball courts on 1 tennis court. And if you had 4 courts, and you would just have a nice offering for the town, as well as, you know, you can have competitions between towns. It's pretty endless. And it's nice to see, you know, people in their 70s play or in their 20s play. You know, it's pretty easy to pick up. It's a combination of tennis and ping pong, pretty much. And I started learning how to play on the courts in Millis, and I've met people from all over the place that I've been playing with and having a great time. So that's
Thank you,
my
Martha.
thought.
Well, you're in good company with Tom Brady too. So he owns a team. I think, George, you have your hand up, and you're, if you can unmute.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know how much I'm supposed to contribute being a committee member, because we're here to primarily listen. But I just want to say I really like the comment somebody made a few comments ago about it's kind of you know, recreational, sort of combining the concept of recreation programming, but with the wonderful open space assets that we have. So this sort of goes beyond, you know, organized sports are awesome and our kids loved it, but also maybe more park and rec programs around hiking or, you know, mountain biking lessons, nature camps, you know, whatever. It's a way to leverage our open space assets in parks and rec programming for youth. I really like that concept.
Thanks, George.
Excellent. We will move on to Hillary. Hillary, you are being promoted to talk.
So then I'd like to build on what George just said and broaden the discussion out to open space, which I think is part of the plan. We moved to Medfield 32 years ago because of the open space. We love it and we use it a lot, and we're those hikers and runners that use it. But there's some of the open space has become really derelict. And I want to speak. I live on Elm Street. I'm the farmhouse before the conservation land, so-called, before Wheelock. So there's a pond between my house and Wheelock that used to be called the nature's classroom or the outdoor classroom. It is an absolute wreck. It is an absolute wreck. It was nice. It was beautiful. There were trails. Kids did outdoor activities from Wheelock. When we moved here 30 years ago, I led nature hikes. I was an outdoor educator myself, and I would take my daughter's second grade classroom out there. It was gorgeous. It was taken over by poison ivy, that right next to our house, but everywhere. And then the black swallow wart has made it uninhabitable. You can't get in there. It used to be when we moved here that little boys were playing hockey on the pond, and kids were walking around. There were trails, there were horses that would go through there. It is uninhabitable. And this is an atrocity in my mind. It's, I know Superintendent Marsden called it, part of the outdoor space for Wheelock. Nobody's been there in a million years. You can't get in there. And so I think that this is a big problem. And I know there are other properties like this. There are properties around the hospital property where you can't get in. The, let's see, Smilax, that green, bushy stuff that is, going to take your feet off, is all over the edges of that property. These properties that are wonderful open space have not been taken care of. And so this is something, just to fit in to your question, in 10 years, I would hope we would at least begin to, if not tackle, some of the upkeep of our derelict properties.
So Hillary, that is, I can tell you, I know the selectmen in particular have voiced that before we think of taking on more open space, we need to inventory, we need to maintain, we need to have a plan. And that's exactly, this kickoff tonight is to get that kind of feedback, because I think we all know that there's some places, some gems, but there's also a lot of places that we own that folks don't even know we have. So, and places that have just gone in disrepair. So that is definitely part of what we're having this tonight. So thank you for the feedback.
Hillary, that's a great lead in. The next section we're doing is conservation. So we're going to take the people who've raised their hands now and then move on to conservation. But if your comments about conservation, when you just hold them for the next section.
And the good news is we did build a little cushion because our wrap up is about 30 seconds. So, so Kristen, you are now up for it and can speak.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. So I just wanted to piggyback on some of the other comments. I have 3 kids, my oldest being in middle school and then 2 younger. And so for us, the idea of like a rec space that's sort of all encompassing of a lot of the ideas that have been mentioned so far is of great interest to us. So some space where middle schoolers and high schoolers can congregate, whether it's organized or unorganized activities, is, top of mind for us, as well as organized sports as well. My kids all did the rec classes, and that building leaves a lot to be desired. And so, I think of it as sort of an opportunity to also create revenue for the town, perhaps, with a new building or center. Pie in the sky ideas like some sort of turf field, hockey rink. Our high school hockey teams practice, 20 minutes away because there's not a facility close by. Our middle school teams play also 20 minutes away. The town teams play in Norfolk. How great would it be to collect the revenue from those organizations for a facility here in town? So, I'm promoting hockey, but I'm also promoting, it could be the pickleball courts, it could be a turf field, it could be a number of things where people are traveling out of Medfield to go to, where if we had a facility here, it is obviously for the residents, but it could also generate income for the town to offset some of the cost perhaps. So that's my hope and desire.
Excellent feedback. Thank you.
Thanks.
We will bring in Eileen Murphy. Eileen, I don't know if you know how to use Zoom, but no, I'm kidding. As a selectman, I know you're a master at it.
All right, so you can hear. So I just want to touch upon 2 points that I've heard people bring up. And when you ask a question about where do we want to be in 10 years, I think of areas in the town today that I believe are underutilized. When we talked about what we tried to do back in roughly 2005, 2006 with building a new rec center, the focus was on addressing the youth and addressing rooms where they could play ping pong, take cooking lessons, different things that were non-athletic. And I think today, the senior center, which is what we call it, but when you drive by it, it's the center of Medfield. I think that there are rooms and there are areas in that building that I would, and I've actually asked Christine about this, could we be making better use of that building that exists today, that I believe a lot of times they wind down at the senior center mid to late afternoon, but yet we have kids getting out of school that they could be going to a building that is near the Kingsbury Club. So those that want to go and do things at the Kingsbury Club can go over there. Kids that want to do non-athletic things, here we have a center that I would love to poke and find more about what we could potentially do. And then there's another area, I live here on Metacomet Street. The 2 tennis courts that are next to the basketball courts at the high school are like one of my biggest pet peeves, because it's a piece of property that is completely dilapidated. You can't technically play tennis there right now, the way the cracks are. But when we talk about pickleball, which I'm an avid pickleball player, love it. You could convert those 2 courts, because the high school team doesn't use it. They go over to Metacomet because the courts today are not usable. It would be inexpensive to then make the modification so that you could get pickleball in there. Not that in theory you couldn't play tennis, but I know that the school tends to go over to the Metacomet parks. So just kind of my food for thought with, I know we have aspirations for 10 years, but what could we be doing in a much shorter window?
We take those too, even the low hanging fruit. We like that fruit. So we have 3 more. Do you think, Wayne, we can take the 3, or?
Yeah, we definitely.
Let's do it. Sean, you are on.
Driving, but I'm not looking at my phone.
No judgment here, Sean. No judgment.
Okay,
Sean, it's really hard to hear you. Sean, it's really hard to hear you. Are you able to get a different connection?
I'm in my car driving, sorry.
We may need to, Sean, if you know of a cell range, you can come back in, but just for the interest of time, why don't we go to Jeremy and then Hilly? Sean, if you're hearing us clearly, then you're probably in a good cell range, so we'll give that a shot. Jeremy?
Great, thank you. I'll be brief. I just wanted to make a plug. I've been coaching youth basketball in Medfield for the entire time I've been here, 12 years. And we mentioned the tennis courts and the situation, the outdoor courts next to the high school, and those basketball courts are in the exact same condition. They're puddles. You can't really use them. One is smaller than the other, and you'll see there's a lot of kids out there playing. I think in 10 years, if we had 2 well-surfaced regulation-sized basketball courts with lights, not only will that be kind of a gathering spot for our young people, but similar to what we heard about possibility for revenue for the town, I'm certain we can run summer leagues. We wind up going to Foxborough and Mansfield to indoor leagues that I know. In fact, I literally know, because I talked to coaches from other towns. We would love to run just a low-key summer recreational basketball program for our kids here, and other towns would come. So I'm in favor of a rec center as well, but I would be thrilled. And I will also mention that I noticed the town of Lexington just funded a basketball and pickleball courts, so they kind of overlay. So I don't know if that would be feasible, or that would even be desirable, but I'm here to advocate for basketball.
So we're going to take Hilly's, and then just for the interest, I think, Wayne, then we'll move on. For anyone else on this topic, we will have a Google form at the end. So we totally encourage you to, to drop in your comments. We want to make sure, and feel free to forward that link to anyone who wasn't able to attend tonight. We want to get as many people as possible, but Hilly will, on this section on Park and Rec, we'll give you the last voice. I just cut off the other selectman, Pete Peterson. So sorry, Pete. We'll.
Well, thank you for having me. I wanted to follow up on something that George mentioned, and that is combining youth programs and the outdoors. And it reminded me that Medfield has a large population of Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, and none of them have a home. And traditionally, they have not been connected to the town. Actually, Troop 89 lost the house that they had at the state hospital, and now has lost the American Legion home. And the Girl Scouts, I remember that from my own daughter, they are not encouraged to meet in private homes, but yet there's no spaces available for their weekly meetings. And it's always been an issue to find a spot to meet with these many groups that we have that, keep our kids safe, engaged, and creative, and also really contribute to the benefit of the town. There's at least half a dozen Eagle projects that are completed every year for the town, and several gold projects. And I think that it would be nice if the town could find a space for all these groups to meet regularly, especially at the younger ages. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to the next subject, which is natural areas and trails. So these are everything from trustees or reservations to state holdings to town holdings and trails. And Brittany, we're going to launch this with the poll for this one as well. If you could. Brittany, I think you can go ahead and close it. So again, not surprising about the walking. I'm impressed by the number of canoeing and kayaking people. Fishing, actually, I was surprised it wasn't higher, but it's very useful for me. So thank you all. So again, we're going to open it up for comments. And we want to know, what do you see as the best features of natural areas in town? Again, raise hands.
So we can kick it off. Jeremy, I think you maybe you had your hand up before, but we'll give you the opportunity here to segue into this.
Oh, I can defer to anyone out there. I didn't have a comment for this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll go to Adam. You were up, Adam.
Thanks, Jerry. Yeah, I mean, the trails, I think the rail trail, the adoption of that was fantastic. I think extending that throughout the town as best we can. I know we have other tracks we have to cross and so forth, but really encouraging that for a couple of reasons: ease of use, safety, and really developing that throughout the Medfield State Hospital, I think would be wonderful as well. We have the big Colony Trail that goes through town that I don't think really anybody knows about, that goes through McCarthy and back that area. Somebody mentioned the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. It's a great project for them to earn badges and to earn Eagles and so forth as those kids develop through the scouting programs. So I think those trails are wonderful. I think also the trails behind Wheelock are widely underused. And not many people know about them off the back roads of Wheelock there, and they're wonderful. We have the big field that people kind of just walk around and then they go home, but there's some great trails back there as well, behind the old the the Flubber House, I guess you would call it up there. So not many people know about that one either. But those are some great areas there, just keeping the trail system going.
It's great. Thank you, Adam. Kevin, we got you in now. Kevin, you are promoted. And you able to hear us, Kevin? Or are you?
I'll try. My Bluetooth isn't working very well, so I'll try the speaker. Is that okay?
We got you now.
Okay, right. Focusing on the positive, we have an amazing, sort of underused network of trails and little connected sort of forested spaces around town that are just amazing. But just kind of mixing in a little bit of negative with the positive is just that the transparency about what is accessible and what isn't is just not there. And so it can take a lot of kind of knowledge gain from others or doing a lot of poking around on maps. And, I recommend looking at the Massachusetts Interactive Property Map, where you can see every single lot line in the entire state and town to know what is what. It's just amazing what Medfield actually owns, but people aren't really using. And so I'd hope that we would be able to access those areas more and kind of reclaim areas that have been forgotten about, like that pond, for example, but maybe reclaim things that have been forgotten about because it satisfies the local private neighbors to let it be forgotten about, as it were.
It's a really good point. We actually had a discussion about this at our last meeting, that sometimes the best places folks don't want you to know about because they think it's their special place. So we'll have to balance that on a need to know basis. But the inventory of what we own is impressive. And part of the goal here is definitely to make it more accessible. Lynn, we are going to bring you forward. And if you can unmute.
I guess I was surprised that in the question about uses, there was no mention of equestrian activities. There aren't that many equestrians, but those who are around do actually have some very large properties that permit connections between one trail and another. So I was a little disturbed that it wasn't even listed as an option.
So Lynn, I can guarantee you in the plan, and it's a fairly large document, but you'll see, very clearly that's land that we value very much. I know with the state hospital, it was an important part of the discussion Trinity had with the town was to preserve and ensure that that was there. So for the sake of quick polls and brevity, we may have left it out, but I assure you it is first of all, you raised it tonight, but secondly, anyone out there, give us continual feedback on that Google form. There'll be more forms on it, but I assure you it is an important part of the preservation and the use of the town. So appreciate that feedback, Lynn. I'm going to bring Pete in because I didn't allow him last time, and so Pete, you are promoted, and I apologize.
Thanks, Jerry.
For a section.
So it turns out that the next topic fits right in with what I was going to bring up a moment ago.
Beautiful. Even better.
So first, I'll start by saying that I think that we have excellent trails in town. I don't think we have excellent trail maps, however, and so that makes it a problem. A lot of the trails that I know about, I found because I was a runner when I moved here 30 years ago, and I could go out and run for miles and find them. The second point I'd like to make is that when you go down the Sherburne side of the river, the trustee's property ends, and then there's signs that say you're entering private property, and the private property owners welcome you. Just be respectful, please. So I think it would be nice if we could have that sort of arrangement with private property owners in Medfield. And then the third thing and final thing I wanted to say was that I'm hoping we can make more connections. I mean, I love the sidewalk that goes from 109 down to Wilkins Glen. And you can actually go from Wilkins Glen over to Hinckley Pond through a path through the woods. Those sorts of connections, I think, are just wonderful. I had someone on Wild Holly that was willing to donate a connection over to the Wheelock area. I mean, that would have been a wonderful connection. It didn't happen, but there's that trail that runs from Wheelock over to 109. I mean, those are just wonderful connections. And the more that we can make those, I would, in the next 10 years, is what I was going to say to you before. I hope that we make more of those connections.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah, great feedback, Pete. Appreciate it. David Temple, we are promoting you. You are in the queue. You are actually out of the queue.
I'm muted. Yeah, I happened to be talking to George Lester yesterday about the trails, and I am not a trail user, but he said there are lots of trails, and he felt there was a need to have signs identifying the trails. And I'm on the historical commission. One of the things the historical commission has done around town is put up a lot of little signs for Brooks, for example, and historic districts and whatnot. And we have a small budget, and I think applying some of that for trails might be useful. I don't know how many trails there are, and I mean, we don't have $20 gazillion to do it, but we could at least make a start if someone wants to do that.
Well, and as we saw from the rail trail, there are a lot of, I mean, part of this exercise is to take all the good volunteers in different organizations that are taking pieces of this and see if we can hold them all together under a common umbrella to be able to get these many good ideas done. Because we're not going to be able to write a check for all of it from the town, but certainly there are a lot of volunteers and individuals who care about it. And I know, given the right form would step up. So appreciate that feedback, David. Martha, we're gonna bring you in. You are here.
What I was going to say is I like to hike a lot. And so I like to go to Rocky Woods. I like to go to Noon Hill. I like to go to the hospital. I love the rail trail. But what's nice about all those locations is I know where I'm going. There are the good maps, which other people have spoken about, and the trails are maintained well. The other town sites, not only do I not really know where they are, but one of the things that could help, and I've seen Dover does this, somehow I got on their mailing list, the conservation agent has a few walks during the year to different town properties and will give, like on a Saturday morning from 10 to 12, a walk for 20 people or whatever it is. So there becomes some awareness of it beyond just, saying that you have the trail and having a map, but actually getting people to actually get out on the properties and walk and experience it, so that hopefully, some hidden gem that we would like the townspeople to use would be used. And that was really it.
That is a good way, since I think that's the last hand that is up, although this is the start of all the feedback that we're gathering. So, Kevin's back. Kevin is here. Well, Kevin, you're going to be our last one. We will take you. You are live.
I just look on the signage. I imagine signage can get quite expensive, and I know that in Rocky Woods and stuff like that, the signage is really good. I just be requesting at least initially just some modest signage, and that can just be those very, very simple town markers. The ones that you see up here and there where there's a known easement. They are around. Even if there was just something simple like one of those attached to a tree where there was an easement or where there was a trail. I mean, I don't know how much they cost, but they're probably the cheapest type of sign you can get, rather than printing something out and sticking it to a tree. But that would just be a starting point to at least say, look, there's something here. It might pique people's interest and they start to look into it a little bit themselves. Obviously, we can go beyond that, but that initial signage is probably the cheapest way of doing it. And then beyond that starts to get more expensive. We can move on to that.
Excellent. So this is, again, David has one more comment. We will take it. David.
Thank you. Yeah, I happened to get the old house signs that you see on houses around here. I recently had one made for somebody, and it cost $60. So that's an idea of the kind of money you're talking about. And if the tree is there, you can just pound it in.
Yeah, I would say the wayfaring, the signs, and the maintenance, came through for sure, along with a lot of other good ideas. Wayne, how do you feel about taking a couple more comments, or should
It's
we?
fine. Let's close it after the ones we have here. Yeah.
I don't know what CRWA Zoom account is, but you now are oh, Charles, well, there you go. Charles River Watershed Association. It gave me the answer. You have the microphone.
Hi, hello, everybody. Robert Kearns here from Charles River Watershed. Just want to say thank you. I've been mainly listening, but Robert Kearns, Climate Resilience Specialist, but would just like to offer us as a support for the town. And you have a lot of open space that is really filtering water, holding back flooding. You just offer us as a resource for you all when developing the plan. And there's also great opportunities to do some things that you're already doing, putting stormwater infrastructure, rain gardens in your parks. So yeah, I just want to offer us as a resource, and also highlight if there's any interest in, I don't know, in this plan or just in town about trying to look at revenue sources. Like Natick just passed CPA, Community Preservation Act. I don't know if there's any interest in town, but we're a resource to help educate folks about that and other things. So just want to say thank you all and offer us as a resource.
It's a critical part. I know that concern about water has been right at the top of the list on sort of preserving it, and we're blessed to be on the Charles River, but that also has a huge responsibility, and we have the Neponset as well. So a big concern for sure, and we will absolutely loop that in. So I think this is fantastic. And I always liked, it's better than sitting for 30 minutes with nothing. We had more than enough participation beyond the hour. So I apologize that we went over, but this is really great feedback. So Wayne, do you have anything that you want to say to close it down? I have one slide.
No, I think just reiterating what you heard from the opening slide, that there will be a couple more opportunities to participate. We will be doing another survey. And there will be another forum. The next forum is based on sort of more testing. So we'll come up with a draft plan, we'll release the draft plan, then ask you, what did we get right and what did we not get right? And then obviously, the slide that is up here now, please send us any additional comments you get. We expect to have a draft plan probably end of February, but we take comments any point in the next few months.
We definitely encourage you. That URL there, the HTTPS tiny URL Medfield OSRP forum. We're going to keep that open probably for a week or so from this forum, and we will be doing. Sarah has told me we'll do a drawing for 3 individuals. We'll have a $25 gift certificate. So even if you had a great idea here, and we have captured it. This is not only being recorded, but we're taking any of the comments from the polls and everything, and that'll be part of the final document. But if you'd like to also have that same great idea you had, potentially get you a $25 gift certificate to a local establishment, then you would be smart. And
yeah. Jerry, let me ask a question quick. were all the sign-ins on the Zoom account, is that being used to create an email list of people that will get, and then people will get notice about when the draft plan comes out and when our next forum is?
Yes, and
cool.
We encourage you, by the way, just many folks had emailed us and said, it's such a crazy time of year. So we had great turnout here tonight. So thank you. Feel free to forward that URL on. We will post the recording, and between the patch, the Medfield Insider, the public postings, the town site, we really want to make sure that everyone's heard here. Ultimately, this document is going to be, reflect Medfield and our priorities. And we have a lot of them, but there's also a lot of commonality when it comes to open space and recreation. We saw that in virtually every document, in every outreach we've done. We hear the same things. Now it comes down, the selectmen have said we've had more general comments, and now it comes down to making decisions in the action plan. And that's really what Wayne's working on for the next 7 years. What does the first, second, third year look like, and what does it look like out, near the end? So, so with that, we will wind it down. Wayne, I want to thank you to all of you for coming out tonight. We really appreciate it. Encourage you to, again, spread the word about this. and get that URL out there, and hopefully you're a winner. But you're a winner for just being here tonight. So, and we're certainly a winner for getting your feedback. So thanks. And with that,
Thank you all. Good evening.
I think we're done.